I'm Brian Shelton, and you're listening to Harper Talks, a co-production of Harper College Alumni Relations and Harper Radio. Today on Harper Talks, I'm excited to speak with Izabela Pieniadz, a 2012 Harper College graduate and soon-to-be, newly minted, 2025 Distinguished Alumni Award recipient. After Harper College, Izabela attended Lake Forest College and then received dual master's degrees from the School of the Art Institute in Arts and Administration and Historic Preservation. She is currently working as Executive Director of the Ellwood House Museum. She joined me in the WHCM studios on the Harper College campus. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
How you going? How you doing today?
I am doing pretty good. I'm excited to talk about myself, which is something I'm normally not very excited to talk about, but I'm here to share and maybe overshare.
Well, and that's good. And, kind of an old, story in the speech communication world is that if you ask somebody to talk about themselves, they'll happily do that. Generally speaking, and if you want to have a conversation, just keep asking that person questions rather than trying to, you interject.
Talk about
as
yourself.
Well. Yeah, talk about yourself. So, yeah. So we were talking right before you came in here that you are not yet a distinguished alumni, but you will be. What do you think about that? Yeah.
I don't know. When I got the call, I was like, oh my God. I was not expecting it at all, which was really great. And I think the other really neat thing about this is looking through the past alumni, you don't really see a lot of humanities or arts and culture folks.
Sure.
So to be able to represent that is just awesome.
Yeah, that is always the thing, isn't it? A lot of times when you're looking at that sort of stuff, it's science folk and healthcare folk and engineering,
yes.
and that's
go
great.
Off. I could never.
Yeah. But us arts and humanities folks never. Well, not never.
We deserve to be represented.
That's right. So I was really excited when Shannon told me that you were going to be here because I do have a connection to the Ellwood House Museum, and I don't know if Shannon passed that along to you or not. But when I was in graduate school, we made a documentary on the 3 barbed wire pioneers.
Okay.
And so we spent quite a bit of time at the Ellwood House. So would you tell people what the Ellwood House is? Because I doubt that a lot of people outside of a certain sphere of influence or area know what it is. So,
well, no, yeah, for sure. So first of all, if you haven't been there, you should go. It is incredible. But the Ellwood House Museum is really dedicated to telling the story of the Ellwood family, as well as the story of barbed wire. I didn't know until I got this job that barbed wire was invented in DeKalb, which makes sense because it's called the Barb City, duh. But the museum itself is 17,000 square feet of preserved Victorian and Gilded Age era living. So you see a lot of the family's belongings in there. It's a constant project at 17,000 square feet.
Right.
So we're always working on preservation efforts. And then outside of that, we try to put on exhibits and programs for the community to kind of inspire a love for history, but also kind of get the word out about the fact that we're there.
Yeah. Also, part of the house, there's another structure that's Mrs. Elwood's curiosity shop
or
something.
Oh my God, yeah, you know your stuff.
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Tell about it, because I think it's really interesting. Will you talk about it for a second?
Yeah. So on the grounds, we have 7 buildings. One of them is called the Curiosity Shop or the Museum Shop. This is from my tour spiel, so bear with me. But once the Ellwoods made their money in barbed wire, they did what everyone else does. You travel the world, you travel everywhere, and you buy souvenirs, you buy little tchotchkes. And Mrs. Ellwood, Harriet, did so much of that Isaac said, there's no room left in our house. So he literally built her an entire separate house for her souvenirs.
Yeah.
And I always like to call it the original she shed.
Yeah.
All the way back to 1903.
Yeah. I always thought it was so funny that this person essentially had a house for their souvenirs, and how cool is that though, right? Man shed, she shed the whole thing, the whole thing there, right? Which I thought was really cool. But the Ellwoods, that whole group there, Joseph Glidden and Isaac Ellwood and Jacob Hayes, they donated all the money and the land to make what would become Northern Illinois University.
Yeah.
So it's a real legacy there. And I just don't think a lot of people realize that, like you said, barbed wire was invented there, and what barbed wire meant to the country when it was done. So,
yeah, and I mean, you still see the influence in DeKalb even today with the street names. Like once you start getting really familiar with the local
Annie Glidden
history.
Road. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So what is your job as the executive director at the museum? What does that mean to be an executive director?
Oh my God, what isn't it? So as the director, my job is to lead the overall strategy for the museum so we can be there long term, and to obviously bring in funds and donors. We are a museum, and a small museum at that. So that is really what keeps us sustained and going. But the day-to-day is literally everything. So today, and I'm not kidding you, I colored in flashlights for the ghost tours we're about to have with Sharpie because I didn't like the cool blue LED. And other days I'll be working on the social media strategy or putting together a newsletter, crawling in the crawl spaces of the mansion. So it literally is a little bit of everything.
Yeah. How many people work at the museum?
So it's me and 2 other full-time staff.
Okay.
And then I have 4 other part-timers.
Okay. And then some volunteers, I
And
imagine.
lots of volunteers.
Docents and that sort of thing. Yeah. Okay, cool. When is the museum open? Like if I wanted to come do a tour or something, what does that...
So we are open Wednesday to Sunday, and we do tours of the mansion itself at 1 and 3 p.m.
Okay, cool. And
So if you wanted to see me in person, that's when you should go.
Is it kid-friendly?
If your kid likes history, yes.
Okay. My kid likes history. Okay, good. I mean, I've been there, but yeah. So before you started that job there, I thought it was really interesting that your work that you did at the Art Institute. Can you talk about that a little bit? Yeah.
So where I started at the Art Institute was working the front desk, just, selling memberships, answering questions and things like that. And then I moved into managing and creating member events, which was like really my first sort of foray into like a big girl job. So I got to, work with all the curatorial departments there and kind of figure out the strategy for how we wanted to approach things. And during the pandemic, the museum ended up restructuring. And I was a department of 1, by the way. So the member events department went away. And a new team was formed called Engagement Programs and Productions.
Okay.
And what I was doing by myself, I now had 3 other people to help me, and we were doing it for members and public audiences, which was really great.
Yeah. Did you like that?
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was a good variety. So I got to work with curatorial teams. I got to work with artists, which was really awesome. And I kind of got to figure out what I really enjoy and don't enjoy as I kind of figured out what I wanted to do.
Yeah. What's it? Kind of maybe a weird question, but what's it like being in that space for such extended periods of time? Because I'm a member of the Art Institute and try to go as often as possible and that sort of thing. And I'm always a little bit overwhelmed when I'm there. Do you get less overwhelmed if you're able to see it every day, or are there still things that you're trying to see there, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's not a weird question. I think that's a valid question. Yes, I think it becomes a little like day to day and monotonous. Not that everything is incredible, but it's kind of like walking through here. Like you see the same things every day in the same spaces, so you kind of start to tune it out. And when you're working at a museum like this, you're not working in the galleries.
Right.
You're in like a basement with no windows.
Right. So you don't get to see it every day unless you go out for a lunch walk or something.
No, but I would always at least try to see all of the new exhibits at least once. And I went and they called me back multiple times. Yeah.
Now, I will say, you mentioned the pandemic. Going to the Art Institute during the pandemic was the absolute best as a member, because members were able to go in and it was like almost completely empty. And it was so peaceful and so relaxing. And I hate to say these words out loud, but I miss the pandemic.
That's fair. You're also welcome because I was the one that made that happen.
Did you? Oh, excellent. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So that's awesome. So I want to bring you back to Harper College. What brought you here? Did you grow up in the area?
Yes and no. So I was born in Poland and lived there until 2000 when my dad brought us all over on family green cards. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of hopped around the area before we settled in Elk Grove. So I think I lived in Elk Grove from 2004 until 2010.
Okay.
So graduated from Elk Grove High School, nice and local. And by the time I was graduating, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, which I think is valid. Like, I'm 18.
Yeah, for sure.
So Harper at the time, and maybe they still do, they offered like a full ride scholarship if you had certain grades or some sort of program. And I qualified for that. So
good for you.
To me, it just made sense to come here and figure out what I wanted out of life.
Right.
Which is the next 2 years.
Yeah, which is I talk to people about this all the time. What's one of the great benefits of having a good community college in your region is that if you haven't quite figured out what you really, if you haven't got the plan, nailed down, going to community college is a really great step because it's very affordable. Most of them are really good. Harper is really good, obviously. And there's so many opportunities at them that if you take advantage of that, not only can you save yourself a lot of money, but you could really figure out what it is that you want to do during that time. Because I meet students all the time who went to some university their first year or something like that, and they wasted $40,000 of their parents' money, and then they've come back here. So yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that. While you were here, what did you find? What worked for you here?
What worked for me? Well, I can tell you that I tried to learn Japanese. And it did not work for me.
Yeah.
So I did not last long in that class. But what I really enjoyed were my art and design classes here. I thought they were incredible, and I walked away with so many valuable things. I graduated 2012. That's 13-ish years ago now. I still have a lot of the projects we did in those classes in updated sketchbooks and things like that. So that was such a big impact. The other thing that I think kind of set me on my path in working in nonprofits and the humanities is that I was a student worker at the Educational Foundation. So that was my first behind the scenes look of what it takes to run, a place that supports others.
It's so interesting that you say that, too, because it's interesting how people come to careers, right? Maybe you would not have gone down that direction if you did. I mean, do people really know what a foundation is? Do people really know what development is, right? Do they know what and if you're not exposed to it in some way like that, how would you know to
look
go
for it? Yeah, that's a thing you could do.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that you could do that. You know, people do this. Yeah, so that's really interesting, and you got that opportunity while you were here.
Yeah.
Any favorite classes while you were here? Remember anything?
Oh my gosh, what do I remember?
It's been a while.
It's been a while. The Design 1 and Design 2 classes for sure. The other class that I remember is I think it was a biology class with Craig Stetner.
Craig, yeah.
So again, such a big impact. And I know, he passed away a few years ago, which is unfortunate. But I still think about that class 13 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have classes like that myself. Yeah, every once in a while, all these years later, it'll pop into my head, and I'm like, oh, why am I thinking about that? Yeah, which is great. That shows the impact of these things. So after Harper, you went to Lake Forest. What did you do there?
So Lake Forest was, I don't know how to say it, but I took a gap year between Harper and Lake Forest.
Oh, nice. What did you do during that gap year?
I worked at a yogurt shop. Which, for the time, very on trend. They were everywhere.
Yeah. Were you just really believing in yogurt, or
I was believing in the money I was earning.
You believing in the money? Okay, all right, yeah.
So when I ended up at Lake Forest and I was starting to think about finishing a bachelor's degree, I was looking for class sizes that were small. And where, a nice campus. I appreciate a nice college campus.
It's very pretty there. Yeah.
It's beautiful there. So Lake Forest was kind of top of the list. And then Lake Forest also has I think, still an agreement with Harper College, where if you're in the honors college, you get like a crazy good discount on Lake Forest tuition.
I didn't know about that. I'll have to look at that. Yeah.
I hope it's still a thing. So, like, to me, that made sense. And at Lake Forest, I ended up taking a lot more design classes and art classes. I got interested in business a little bit there, so I took some finance and accounting classes. And I was like still trying to figure out what to do. And Lake Forest offered an off-campus study program. It's called In the Loop. So, for a semester you live in the Loop, and you have to have an internship. So, like, my first ever internship I ever had was at the Art Institute.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So, it's this little thing that kind of puts you on the path that you're on.
Yeah, see, I'm a big believer in internships myself, and we try to encourage students to find a meaningful internship. I run one of the media programs on campus, and, it's like you need a meaningful internship so that you can meet people. I mean, it is, for better or worse. Your career after college is so much about who you met while you were going to college, right?
Absolutely.
And if you didn't meet anybody while you were going to college, it makes things really tough when you go on the outside. And I meet students often who, they did their classes, they did whatever job they had, and then they graduated, and then they're sitting out at the end and saying, I don't know how to get a job in my field. I don't know anyone. And it's like, well, yeah, that's where the internship comes in. So that was really cool that you had one at the Art Institute.
Yeah,
so.
it worked out perfectly. I ended up doing like a member travel internship, so I got to plan some like member travel trips. And the person that I was reporting into was an alumni of Lake Forest. So again, like that network and those connections that you build are things that last, a lifetime.
Yeah. Now, after Lake Forest, it's the Art Institute for
7 years.
Yeah. Dual master's degrees?
Dual master's.
What's wrong with you?
So here's the thing. I love being a student.
Okay.
I'm just not a very good student.
Okay.
But I didn't get them at the same time. I think I would have lost my mind if I had to do dual masters. But I did get them while I was working full time. So the arts admin degree seemed kind of like the next natural step.
Sure.
I'm trying to think when I started it. I was still working the membership desk at the time, and thinking like I need something to help me move along in my career.
Right.
That master's made the most sense, and the arts admin program has so many staff from SAIC take it. So that's what I enrolled in. I got in, and then it wasn't until close to the end of that program where, for one of my electives, I took a survey historic preservation class, and it clicked for me there.
Yeah,
I was
set
like,
off
this is
fire for
what
you.
I want to do. Yeah. So immediately, when I finished that arts admin, I re-enrolled in historic preservation.
Yeah.
And took more classes.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I know. When I was in graduate school, I took a class in documentary production, and that was the click for me. Because I had been in radio for a long time, and not in the media and video production side of stuff, and then went into that, and I was like, wow, this is what I want to tell stories about. But it's hard because there's no money in it.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, so that's tough. So, let's say somebody's listening to this and they're like, oh yeah, arts preservation, that's something I'm interested in. Is that a market? This is kind of a hard question, I guess, but is that a market where someone could actually hope to get a job and make a living, or is that like, I don't want to say you got lucky, but you were in the right places at the right times?
So I absolutely got lucky. When I was finishing this degree, the job that I have now just happened to open up.
Okay,
And I was really like the unicorn they were looking for. I had the museum management background, an events background, and a preservation background.
Right.
So a job like that is very much luck.
Yeah.
The thing with the historic preservation degree is that the community of professionals here in Chicago is really small. So, if you pursue a program like that, chances are you'll meet everyone, you'll have internships with them. So it's much easier to get a job that way.
So again, it's about that network, though,
It's about
right?
that network, yeah.
Yeah, very important. Yeah, but you also had a lot of things in your bucket, right, that met that unicorn list that they had, and so that's important too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Did you feel like Harper prepared you for all of this? I mean, I know you did your yogurt gap year, but like, do you feel like Harper prepared you for going to Lake Forest and going to the Art Institute?
I think it did. Like I said, like I love being a student. I'm not a good student. In high school, I would, cut in-school suspensions, all of that. Here, it allowed me to figure out what worked for me, like schedule-wise, classes-wise, and that kind of, it made me a slightly better student, and it allowed me to, I don't know, figure out what I was, wanting to do. So absolutely, yes, Harper.
Do you find your work exciting?
I do.
Yeah.
I love the variety of it.
Yeah, so that variety is what makes it
go, yeah.
Yeah.
It's never the same, which I, talked about earlier, but it's also an interesting challenge in thinking of new ways to keep the museum sustainable and keep it going. And you get to experiment a little bit, which I think, is not something that you get to do in a lot of careers.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not trying to talk you out of your job.
Okay.
But like, if you could have your job at any museum of importance, what would be the dream?
Okay.
Is that?
No, that's a good question. So it actually wouldn't be a museum.
Okay.
My dream job would be to run like a historic motel.
Oh.
My master's thesis in preservation was focused on like motels around Lake Michigan, and that like put me somewhere in like the backwoods of Wisconsin, a historic motel. That is my dream job.
That sounds like fun.
And I get to fix it myself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that sounds like fun. You like working with your hands too? Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah.
You want to fix it yourself?
I want to fix it myself as much as I can.
Okay. That's
maybe not the plumbing.
Maybe not the plumbing. Okay. So I try to ask everybody who comes in here. I think I have successfully asked everybody who's been here. What advice do you have for current Harper students? What would you tell you today if you could?
So I was thinking about this on the drive over, and I am so introverted. Like if I had the opportunity, I would never leave my house. But what I forced myself to do is say yes to things.
Yeah.
And I think that is the biggest takeaway. Even if you're like dreading it the day of, if you go there, it can change your life, or like you can figure out what it is, and you might not hate it. So say yes to things, even if you don't want to.
Yeah. Say yes to things. That's fantastic advice. I was having this conversation. It's funny that you say that. I was having this conversation with my daughter last week. She was nervous about giving a presentation. And she goes, Dad, you teach communication for a living. You taught speech for a living. What's your advice? And I looked at her and I said, get over it. And she said, well, that's not very friendly. And I'm like, well, no, I mean, get over it. Go in the front of the room and do your speech and be done.
Yep.
Everybody is there to listen to you, whether you think they are or not. And, you just have to do these things. This is part of growing up and doing it. And so saying yes to things, right, is part of growing up and doing it. Yeah, I absolutely agree to that. Saying no to things.
I mean, you should say no sometimes. Like maybe saying yes isn't the greatest idea in some situations.
But I think you have to be... I'll take to a different direction for you. I think you have to be putting yourself into positions where you have the opportunity to say yes to things.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And so if you're not at the event, if you're not at what's going on in your community or in your profession or that sort of thing and showing up to that sort of thing, no one's ever going to ask you to do it, right? Like no one's just going to magically call you and say, hey, would you like to do this? I thought of you. It doesn't work that way, right?
No, it doesn't. And most recently, I... got an Instagram ad of all places that they were looking for volunteers for to just like be little guides in Lake Forest for some historic houses, and I said sign me up. The day of, I was like, why did I do this? Oh my God, I could just stay home. Like it's such a nice day, but I went, had a wonderful time, met the organizers who deal in antiques. So now I have a new connection, in a place that I didn't have one previously.
Right. That's fantastic. Right? Yeah. You've got to make yourself present in order for the opportunity to find you. I think that's a really important lesson that you bring up, because I have that with students all the time. I'm like, you should go and work on this project, and they'll, well, I don't have time. And I'm like, well, when are these opportunities going to present themselves to you again? It's very hard to do. So.
The other thing too, I'll say, it's such a hard thing to do, but like networking,
yes,
and putting yourself out there with like complete strangers and essentially selling yourself horrifies me.
Yeah. It horrifies
Like,
everyone,
I get
think.
so sweaty, so nervous,
Yeah.
but I continue to do it
Yeah.
because I meet people and I can talk about the Ellwood House or I can talk about myself, and that's how you spread everything.
Yeah.
That's how it grows.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it's been so much fun talking to you. I haven't
Likewise.
thought about barbed wire in a long time. I don't want you to think that I associate you with barbed wire. That sounds bad. But I haven't thought about that time in my life in a long time until Shannon said that you were going to be on the show, and she sent me your background information. And I was like, oh, my goodness, the Ellwood House. Oh, that brings back so many memories from that time period. We had a premiere for the film at the Egyptian Theater in town. And
Do you still have it?
I don't
would
know. It's
love
probably
to
on
see
VHS
this.
or something somewhere. I know someone who probably has a
Okay.
copy. I definitely have that.
I want to see it.
Yeah, I'll tell him he should put it on YouTube. I bet it looks horrible because it was
Oh,
shot.
that's fine.
It was shot in a format back then that was called 3/4 U-matic, which was just an ugly, ugly format.
Okay.
So I can't imagine that it's held up very well to.
Well, it's vintage now, right?
Yeah, it's definitely vintage. Yeah, it's like vinyl and cassette have made a comeback. Maybe VHS will make. Well, VHS actually is making.
It's coming. Yeah, it's coming back.
Yeah, it's coming back. It's there. Well, thanks so much for being here today. I've totally enjoyed talking to you. Izabela is a Harper College graduate and soon to be distinguished alumni. If you're enjoying Harper Talks, please subscribe, and while you're at it, rate and review us so that others might find us. Harper Talks is a co-production of Harper College Alumni Relations and Harper Radio. Our show is produced by Shannon Hines. This episode was edited by Kobe Pozo. Our online content producer is Blue Bailey. Our theme music was created by Aiden Cashman. I'm Brian Shelton. Thanks for listening.